Hey, Lita, how you doing? I've got your work up here, and I want to jump right into it because we have a lot of things to cover. I want to talk about not only your portfolio requirements this week, your personal identity, and your electives, but I also want to talk about the background pages that you've designed for as part of the requirements for this week as well. So let's start with the resume and the actual identity. All right, the resume, I'm not going to talk too much about it because next week we get into how to actually construct your resume. So you'll learn a lot. There's a few things here that are questionable regarding a resume. As far as the design of the resume go and the business card and the envelope, I think that you've done something very smart, and that is you've used left-aligned contact information throughout. That's good. That's showing really excellent consistency. And then, of course, your logo is very consistent as well. So I think you have a tendency of using type entirely too large. This type is enormous. This is going to be 8.5 by 11. So that's probably, I'll bet that's 14, maybe even larger type size. That's just enormous. So really reconsider the relationship there. As far as the mechanics of the letterhead goes, you've got the logo here to the left side of the composition on everything except the letterhead. So I would think it would help consistency to put the logo on the left-hand side there. Okay. And then also, this information here, I know I just said it's good that's consistent, that you're showing it left aligned, but there's a really neat trick that you can do with a letterhead. And that is to really utilize the space of the letterhead. It's a great thing for beginning designers to do because it allows them to repurpose this letterhead for your resume, your cover letters, thank you letters, things like that. And eventually, eventually your invoices if you decide to freelance down the line, invoices and things like that. So to gain that kind of maximum versatility in this letterhead, I would recommend taking your contact information. I talked about moving your logo there. Just take your contact information. Just span the bottom of the page with it. Design it and time it out however you think necessary. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Sorry about that. But yeah, and there's plenty of examples online that you can see of letterheads. And I think that's a wonderfully versatile way to design a letterhead, much more so than keeping your information up top. Think about that. Again, the type here is really very, very large. So again, think about that relationship too. And print some of these pieces out. You'll see what I mean. I mean, for a business card. By the way, is that 8.5 by 11? I mean, I know the background sheet is, but this doesn't look like it's going to equal out to the scale of an 8.5 by 11 based on the scale, the stroke that you've drawn around that. Okay, so that's your stationery system. All right, so let's jump over to your electives. I think your electives are great. I mean, they're every one of them is very good. Typeface design, digital illustration, and your painting. But you owe us one more. There's 4, I believe there was. Yeah, there is. There's 4 in there. Electives. 3 to 4. Okay. 3 is fine. I'd like to see 4. I think it'd be nice to show a little bit more variety than just those 3. Although those 3 you're showing fantastic variety. Maybe 1 more, if you can. See what you have. Okay, so now talking about the way that your identity is working out. I think it's very consistent, but do keep in mind the things I mentioned. I want to jump over right now to the second part of the assignment, and that's where you design those background pages. So let's take a look at those. So this would be your portfolio, and I'm trying to think of what size page this would be, because that's kind of a square page, and that's interesting. That'd be interesting. I think that one of the problems that I think we're having is that there's no information on the pages themselves, and there's no actual real grid. And I'll talk about both of those, and I'll show you examples. Typically, you don't want to use a dark color on your background pages in portfolio. I say use white. If you want to use a color, use very, very light gray or very, very light brown, beige, something extremely neutral. I prefer a stark white background. I think it's more professional. I think it's much more chic as well. This looks good that the way you've got this presented, and you're starting to look at a grid here, but we'll talk about that further in a second. So I say the black background pages are out. Okay, let's take a look at the second one. This is the one I thought, wow, this is interesting. This is a square format. I think this is really an interesting way to go. I do not recommend placing any sort of anything on the background pages because, and the reason why you don't want to do that, as well as the reason why you don't really want an aggressive color or a color that's drawing too much attention as your background pages, is because you want the viewer to concentrate on your work and not the background pages. And you'll see the busier the background pages are, the more apt the viewer is to concentrate on the background and not the star of the show, and that's your work. So I think the page size here is very interesting. I'm going to say let's skip the watermarked background. Okay, this is an interesting, but again, it's really super busy. I'm a little starting to get a little question your identity a little bit here, because here you're simply AE. Okay, here your logo is a simple monogram, and I think that's smart. Now over here you're starting to get into art. You're using this art and emphasizing the word art in your name, and you've got drop shadows, and you've got this typographic composition here. So where is the branding here? Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, if this would be what you would elect to go with, I would look at this and I go, okay, the cover is not consistent with the branding. Okay, so what it seems to me like is you're just trying to design, and instead of letting the pages kind of fall together for themselves. We have this black background again. Okay, and then talk about that. Okay, now this piece, I think this piece is pretty good, and you're showing consistency, and that's good. I think this piece is even a little too busy. Let me back off that a little bit so we can see what I'm talking about. Okay, the cover is definitely really super busy. The eye does not know where to look because of all these intersecting lines and type on the vertical and type on the horizontal, and so that's really, really busy. And if we look at the pages themselves, we can see that these lines, they're also starting to really kind of take over the page in terms of attention-grabbing elements. Okay, moving forward, I've got suggestions, and I'm going to use examples to show you what I'm talking about. And this is a previous, well, actually, I'll start with an example from the class, and then I'll show you a previous student's, very, very successful previous student's example. And what was that? Oh, that was my download. Sorry about that. So, okay, so first let's go into the class and let's take a look at this right here. Remember this, a week 5 and 6 assignment 2? Well, my first, I don't know if you remember, I posted first, and in that announcement it says, please follow these steps. And then I give you these steps to follow, and then I also tell you exactly what's due this week. And then I show you some examples of a what I consider to be extremely successful portfolio pages. First, look at the page size. Very, very interesting page size. I'll talk about that more in a second. I really want you to notice the consistency of the placement of the page number and the description. And now, note each piece has a description. Your work doesn't have any description, and you really want to give a brief description. If you refer to some of the class notes, you'll see there's a couple of recommendations as to what to include on your background pages. Where is that? That might be coming up. I'll talk about that in a second. Anyways, so basically you want to say what the name of the piece is, the software that you use, the typefaces that you use, and maybe the objective of the project. And that's it. But make sure that it's located in a consistent place on each page. This way the viewer will know where to look. Down here for the pertinent information on that, regarding the information presented on that page. Now down here, I've got some wonderful examples of how to different uses of a grid. Now this is a 3x3 grid, but we're showing active areas. Okay, so this could be an image, this could be type, this could be images, this could be type, these could be type blocks, these could be image blocks. So any way you use it is going to be mathematically correct because it is based on a grid. Okay, so, and more on that in our announcement, in the course announcements, course homepage. announcement, how to design using a grid. So please take a look at that and look at all of these. If you haven't reviewed these, please do so. There's about 10 of them since Welcome to Week 3 and 4. So take a look at those. Most of them have videos in them, and I think they're really, really going to help tremendously. If you've already looked at them, that's awesome. If you haven't, please, please do. Okay, so my recommendation for moving forward is this. I want to show you this was a student example, and this is a class that was prior to this. A student gave it permission to use this work as an example. So note the page size, very, very interesting page size. This is 8.5 by 13.75. It is within the golden section, so it's a gorgeous page size. We know that. Also, okay, so note the simplicity. We have the opening page, just the logo. Now note the background pages. Here's the logo. Background pages are based on branding. Okay, and since branding is established here in your personal identity, then somehow, presumably, it would make sense. I mean, presumably, you would want to use your branding in the background pages of your portfolio. Hope that makes sense. If not, stay tuned because I'll show you some more examples. Okay, so note the progression of how she's developing her branding. Here's the color, here's the logo, here's a little quote using the colors that she's chosen. All right, now just take a look at where the placement of the logo is. I'm going to flip through these pages really fast. All she says is it's stationary. She names the piece, names the client herself, and then just gives a brief description. Over here, okay, so DVD cover, the client or the title, and then this brief description. Okay, sorry about that. And note how that progression, or how that formula kind of repeats itself page after page. So we really don't have to look anywhere for the type. The type is right there. The viewer knows it. It sets up a wonderful timing for the presentation because the viewer knows that they can take a look at this and then find the type. Okay? So what I would like you to do is I would like you to think about a background page more like this and really something very, very simple to help to embellish your branding, not to try to force these design elements on your viewer. Did you see what I'm saying? So it should be a very simple and very straightforward, almost letting the viewer decide the cadence and everything else, the timing and the cadence of the presentation, because you're giving a minimal presentation and allowing them to concentrate on looking at the work. Okay, so I would like you to think about that, and maybe if you want to resubmit a couple more examples, I think it would definitely help. Or if you have any questions, comments, or anything, please let me know. And I'm sorry, this is almost 14 minutes. I did not mean to go so long. But if you have any questions or concerns whatsoever, please feel free to let me know, and I'll be glad to clarify. Okay, thank you.